everyone? This is Dennis Corolina, a good buddy of mine. Some backstory. His name used to be Coronel, but he got married. And what was her last name?
Andalina.
You combined it, and now it's Corolina. Honestly, coolest thing I've heard in like the longest time.
We kind of mess everyone up. We just ruined our family tree, basically.
Dude, hell yeah. Just started over. Anyways, some quick backstory for everybody. Dennis is a good buddy of mine. It's actually been like a minute since we talked, which bums me out. We need to talk more. But OG member of That Pitch, sync producer extraordinaire, lands shit literally all the time. We're both a huge fan of Jeff Staple, and we wear all of his gear. That's how we initially got tight. Anyways, love you to bits, bud. I'm so glad you're here, man. How are you?
Yeah, good. Everything's good. Just, living life, I guess. I don't know. Yep. Every day's the same.
When we, guys, when we first started chatting today, I'm like extremely tired right now. Dennis seems pretty tired too, because you have a newborn.
Yes, I do.
So we're both just exhausted. Now. God, wow. Yeah, we're just exhausted dudes right now, dude. Well, anyways, you just landed a track. We're going to listen to that, but, you're really active in the sync world, dude. Like everybody that I know knows you. You're doing stuff for trailers and just a bunch of in-show stuff all the time. You land stuff on That Pitch. You're just like killing it all the time. And are you still in Pittsburgh?
Yep.
Yeah. So, tier 2 city. Again, you're not in the New York or LA. I think you used to be in LA, right?
I left LA, actually. Yeah.
My man.
So
did not the only way to do LA is to leave it.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody I know who moves to LA they're like doing really great in life. Then they move to LA and straight up within 3 months, they're blonde and they're just like depressed. And I'm like, what? Why did you bleach your hair? What happened? Anyways, well, I wanted to talk about you, your career, how you got started, talk about all of your sync history, all the ass you're kicking. And then we'll listen to your track. Does that sound good?
Sure. Sounds great.
My man.
All right. So,
go for it.
I started sync by doing instrumental cues, mostly background music for reality TV shows, sports segments, stuff like that. From there, I started working with more artists, producing artists. And, my big sell when working and selling, my production skill or production work with artists was that I could get their music synced, or I could try to get their music synced. Obviously I couldn't.
I remember earlier on we were talking about that a lot, actually.
Yeah. So that was my draw, is that I was doing things, especially in hip hop, I was doing things that most hip hop producers had no idea about, back then.
So you could differentiate yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so that was my big draw, and I started working with more artists. From there, I started doing more types of music, branching out and kind of experimenting. Everything very hip hop leaning still, but, a little bit more pop, a little bit more EDM, whatever. And just kept growing and growing, working mostly with artists now. And then, still doing a lot of stuff with That Pitch.
Got it. So when you first kind of like went into the sync world, was it like, I don't know if this was the same for you, but like, I didn't, my dream growing up, like what I just imagined my life to be was not like, oh, I'm going to like make music for film. Like it's dope. Right. But like, I didn't really know about it. I just had people start to like online just message me and say, hey, like, do you do this sort of thing? I was like, oh, that's what that is. That's sick. Right. Okay, cool. Did you make like an active effort, okay, cool. Yeah. How did that all play out?
I was going to school for audio engineering, and the school I was going to had like a conference, and one of the panels was about sync. And I was like, I have no idea what this is. I'd rather learn about something I didn't know than sit in a panel about some dumb shit.
Here's compression.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
My God. Dude.
Yeah. And so I was just like, oh, like just like you, like, oh shit, this is how it's done. And
there's money here.
Right, there's money here.
It's like, I'm so sick of all these people talking about Verb. Where are we going to start talking about rent?
Right. Yeah. And so one of the companies was like a major player in the game back then, that was on the panel. Reached out to them, started submitting music to them. Like a year later, I come home, I check the mail, and there's a check from BMI. And I'm just like, oh shit, I could actually make money. I could actually make money from this.
I don't know. Okay, so my first BMI check was like next to nothing. And I'm like, yeah, of fucking course. Of course it's going to be this, right? And then like my second or maybe my third one, it was like an actual check. And I was like, all of the old timers talking about mailbox money.
Right.
I get it. Like, I was so busy talking shit. I didn't realize there's actually money here.
Yeah, I think my first check was like $130, but like, but like it just kind of like exponentially grew from there.
You know, it's funny. So like real side tangent. In the sync publishing, whatever space, there's like a letter of direction, and that just means like this person pays this person and that person pays that person. So like music licensing companies pay that pitch, then that pitch pays out the money 100% to the music maker. But when you have your writer share on, you know, under BMI or ASCAP, there isn't a letter of direction through that pitch. That goes directly to people. I want it that way. And so I don't always know exactly what people are getting paid like on that back end, unless like they tell me. And like I'm getting messages regularly of like quarterly checks of like 5 or 15 grand.
Nice,
like, sick. Like, like, it's so funny because like you know you grow up and you like learn about like what, you know, mailbox money could be. Right. And then you experience like the early part of your career and you're like, it's all bullshit. No, that's not real. And then it's like you start going more into your career and like you just keep going, like just stay with it. And you're like, oh, it is real.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'm just glad I'm either too stupid or too stubborn to have stopped. And, you know, it's benefited me.
Thug life chose us, bro. I mean, I always say like, honestly, I've never had a job. I've always been self-employed in music / fun employed sort of thing. But, but like, I can't even imagine like trying to work in another direction. I would be such a shitty employee, dude. Like I would not show up. I would not do the work. It's just, you got to be obsessed with what you do, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. Cause like I'm so far removed from that corporate world now. Cause I mean, that's what I was before. And like, when I have to like step in to like help someone else do something, I'm like, fuck this shit. Never again.
It's like, I give some really just asinine advice to my friends who have like jobs.
Right.
I give like some truly terrible advice that I think is like, well, this is how you can negotiate this. Like get your salary up, you know, a death threat, something like that. And they're like, no, that doesn't work. You know, I work at a bank, Mark. Anyways, I do not condone threatening your boss for a raise. Just throwing that out there for anybody.
Unless you're your own boss.
Right. Threaten yourself, dude. It's like, you know, you ever want to like work harder? Just like spend all the money in your bank account. You'll work harder. You know?
Great advice.
Anyways, okay. So you started, so you went to school, you know, took like a sync sort of, there was like a panel or something. You're like, oh, there's something going on here. And so what was the next step for you?
I just started making more and more music. I think I was like, okay, this is working. I need to put my head down and just make as much music as I possibly could, you know, and then till I could get a better bearing for it. Yep. And then as I was doing that, I was researching more companies, finding more companies to reach out to, you know, developing more relationships with people. And, you know, then that's just a constant cycle. Make, you know, create, network, create, network, create, network.
Yep.
And, you know, even though there are these big libraries, some of these people recognize your name for the quality of work. And it was kind of crazy. One of the companies I worked with before, this guy was working there. I guess he was an A&R there. And then he started his own company and had reached out to him sometime last year. And I was like, oh, you know, one of the artists I work with, you know, reached out to you, is working with you. You know, I'd love to work with you as well. He's like, oh, I know your music from my days at this company. And I was just like, that was like 5-6 years ago. Yeah. That's crazy that you remember my music and just my name attached to that music.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like, I kind of always tell everybody the first placement is always the hardest.
Right.
It's always the hardest. But like people remember names, they remember sounds, they remember brands, they remember the experience they had with somebody. And so it just all compounds over time. Like the first couple of years are going to be rough, like always
For
in
sure.
any business. Like that's the thing is like, you know, making music and selling music are two different things. Like, you know, like getting good at your craft, you know, I'm not going to say, you know, people get weird when you're just like, oh, like he's the expert. He's a master of his craft. No, it's like, we're always learning.
Yeah.
But there's like a certain level of proficiency where you can do your work on a commercial standard, you know, on a professional standard. Right. And that's really at like 80%. If you can like do your craft to 80%,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who do full time at like 80%. But the real, you know, advantage is like people who, you know, are able to really network and constantly ensure everyone around them that they're providing value.
Right.
And like, I think that's the big separator. Like even like I don't really have much power within that pitch to clients other than like saying, yeah, he's a homie. I like this guy, you know, like I don't, it's their budgets. They decide what they get. But even the fact like earlier on, like I remember you just being like, dude, how can I help? Like what can I do to make sure like that pitch doesn't, you know, get set on fire sort of shit? You know,
yeah,
how
I mean,
can I help?
That's definitely something we've talked about a lot is being of service to people, you know, making someone's life easier. And just by doing something as simple as that has like put me way above more talented people, you know, whatever, you know, some people
You're
want
not
to work
talented.
with people I'm not.
Dude, you know what's funny? I'm not talented at all in what I do. I've just spent hours and I make sure that my calendar is available. That's all.
Right.
You know, that's at the end of the day, like one of my buddies, Daryl, sorry, this is just going to be just a bunch of side stories, dude. But one of my buddies, Daryl Ron, incredible songwriter. He was actually on Fallon like a couple weeks ago, but,
nice.
He was my roommate at Berkeley and he played a show down here in Charlotte. And like me and my buddies were like his backing band. And this woman like comes up to him after and she's like, Daryl, you just have such a gift. You are so gifted. And he was like, thank you very much. And then he looks over at me. He's like, I don't really know a gift you cry over for 10 years, but you know, it's like none of this is fancy. Like you're just working. But to go back, like earlier on, you were just always like, how can I help? What are clients looking for? Are there certain things that are, you know, turning them off to certain parts of the catalog? And like, even outside of that, is there anybody I can connect you to? You know, it wasn't just about the music. And like, you know, it's not like I have the ability to just say, yes, you're going to land this. But like, if somebody asks me, like, hey, what do you think about, you know, Dennis Corolina, Angelina sort of thing? I'll say, yeah, I fuck with him. He's the best, you know? And it's simple as that. And sometimes that's all it takes, you know? But anyways, so you focused on networking a lot. What were the earlier days kind of in sync? What did that look like? How were you networking? Were you
all of it was through email?
Perfect. You know? I fucking love this kind of story. Go.
That was it's so funny. I avoided going to conferences and stuff like that because I was having more success emailing people, and just writing the right email can change the way someone looks at you. Actually, my friend, I was talking to my friend about this yesterday. I don't know what it is, what we say, but people seem to gravitate towards our emails than like our other friends. So like another friend reached out to the same companies we work with and they got passed over and yet we didn't. And it's just like, well, what's the difference? You know, the two friends actually work on music together. So it's not that there's a quality difference there because they're making similar music or whatever, but we're like, it's got to be what you're saying in your email. It's got to be how you're presenting yourself, you know?
SoundCloud link.
Yeah, right. Not, what up, homie? Take my music. Here it is.
Yo, this would be great under a film.
Right.
So what did you say in your emails that was different?
I think I try to be friendly but professional, you know? Like I want to treat people like humans, and I want to, like you said, make it sound like I want to be of service to them. It's not about me. My emails are never about me other than if you want, here's some music to listen to, you know?
Yep. That all of my cold messages, because sometimes it's email, sometimes it's LinkedIn, sometimes it's Instagram, sometimes it's Facebook. You know, the way that I kind of always do any like cold outreach, so to speak, is I literally just talk about that person. I just say,
Right.
hey, so-and-so, just want to let you know I'm a massive fan of in-state work that you're generally a fan of, that they were a part of. I really love how you've approached this by doing blah, blah, blah. Anyways, just wanted to state that general admirer of what you're up to. If you're ever in Charlotte or New York, I'd love to, get a coffee, or feel free to hit me up anytime. Here's my number.
Yeah.
Some people don't respond. Some people say, where'd you get my email? And some people are like, dude, oh my God. Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Let's get on a call. Yeah. And the next thing you know, you're best friends.
Right. Exactly.
But I think people in our industry, like, we're in a very emotional industry, right? Like, nobody's here out of logic.
No.
Nobody's here because it makes sense. We make sense out of the chaos that is the music industry.
We're all slightly crazy.
I thrive in the chaos. Yeah. But because of that, there's actually something that's really powerful about being in the music industry, is because everyone is here really based off of emotion, right? And we're all lucky to be here, and we know that. We have a very high emotional intelligence. So like, let's say you're in the accounting industry or something, right? And some people are, but not many people are very passionate about being there. It's very transactional, like, hey, how's this going? Blah, blah, can we do this? Whereas in our industry, people know if you genuinely are in it for their best interest,
right?
And vice versa. Everybody can smell like if you're not being genuine from a mile away.
Right.
And I find that a lot in the music tech space, because there's people who like are not from music at all, have no history in music whatsoever. And they're like, yeah, I have a startup idea and they're going to sell it for $10 million. I'm like, okay there, bud. Calm down.
Right.
Like, calm down there, buddy. I mean, if you were really in the music industry, you would have been talking about laundering drugs. No, I'm kidding. Oh man.
That's funny that you say that, because that was like one of the biggest things I learned early when I started collaborating, is being able to like sniff out all of that bullshit and be like, have a whole conversation with someone. They sounded excited. As soon as I got off the phone, I was like, I'm never going to hear from them ever again.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, also, that's also a big reason why I choose to live in Charlotte, and probably why you choose to live in Pittsburgh, is like, there's some, music stuff going on here. There's some people in the industry, but it's not like a music industry town.
Right.
And so when I meet somebody at a show or a club or at a studio, nobody's stating to you they're going to be the next Justin Bieber. There's no psychos in the building. They're just like, yeah, man, like, I'm really excited because like I'm able to pay my rent through this now. It's really cool. I got a show next week. Why don't you come? I'll give you a VIP pass. Like, everyone's just excited to be here, and there's like no ego. It's like, wow, I get to do this. How dope is that?
Yeah.
I don't have to work at a deli in it. Like, that's cool.
Exactly.
So anyways, when, so you were networking for a while, trying to provide as much value as you can. There's a book that I really love called The Tipping Point. And just by viewing from the outside, I feel like your career has grown dramatically in the past couple of years. Was there a point where it's like, oh, I'm getting momentum here? You know what I'm saying? Explain kind of leading up to that, and when a lot of that started accruing for you, and what did it take to kind of get there?
I think I had two tipping points in the two different like aspects of my sync career, I guess. So when I was doing mostly instrumental cues, it was kind of interesting. I went to a conference. I had talked to some guy, emailed him a couple times, never heard from him, went about my life. I think it was like 6 months later, I get this random phone call, and I'm like, it's not in my phone. I'm not picking this up. So I let it go to voicemail, goes to voicemail, and he's just like, hey, I got your number from the guy that never responded to me, and I'm starting a library. I wanted to see, I noticed we're from the same same city. Do you want to help me create this library? And I was like, oh shit. I was like, let me call this guy back. And I call him back, and I'm just like, I was like, yeah, I'm down. Whatever you need, let me know. I can crank out stuff. I'll dedicate my next 3 months to helping you build this catalog or whatever. So I did. And like, one of his biggest clients was Access Hollywood. And then they were using 2, 3, 4 cues an episode, almost every episode. And then that just kind of like took off. I was working a full-time job at that point.
Okay.
Full-time job started getting in the way, and I just said, fuck it. I was like, what's the worst case scenario? I go back to a full-time job.
Right.
So it kind of just pushed me. I was like, well, now I have no income.
Right. It's like, dude, it's, some of the, I've talked about this like in some other interviews, but like, I kind of always try to think about this like in my personal life and professional life is like having fuck it moments where like you've just had enough. And it, from a professional perspective, it's like, I'm really sick of dealing with this kind of client, or I'm sick of not getting customers, or I'm sick of doing this as opposed to this. Right. Well, this isn't the healthiest thing. It's actually a pretty brute way about going about it. But man, if you just stop, you're going to figure something out.
Right. Yeah.
But it's
sink or swim. I mean,
yeah, it's like in relationships. Like, I'm happily married now, my beautiful wife, Shira. But, I was with crazy women before. And you have a moment where you're just like, the hell am I doing?
Right.
And then you just say, hey, this is not working out and it's not going to. Wish you well. And then you turn off your phone. But like, but
change those locks.
But when you finally have kind of like those are like self-actualization moments. And I feel like there's a lot of people that want to pursue music that are out there that are stuck at a job that they hate or whatever. And listen, I'm not telling you to just quit your job and just go for it, because music does take a while. But when you really put yourself in a position where you have to make it work, you make it work. Yeah. I don't know how else to state that. And like, when you're self-employed in music, right? You have to just make it work sometimes. And you do. And it can be stressful at times, but the difference is like, if you have a steady paycheck, at a 9 to 5, there's times where you can really just like kind of coast.
Yeah.
But in music, you have to, at a certain point, you get to a level where it's like, all right, all the money's coming in. But like the first, like plenty of years, it's going, unless you like don't get strategic about it and realize that you're dealing with some shit, you're going to have a couple of years where it's like, I'm learning quick. They're expensive lessons is what I call them. And you don't have to have an expensive lesson. You can learn from reading, you can learn from little steps, but a really expensive lesson is like quitting your job, or I think maybe it's like an expensive skill to learn. It's like you really paid a lot to get really good very quickly, Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think those, and then, the second moment, I guess, was when I started doing more vocal, or working with artists and doing more songs instead of instrumental cues. I was saying yes to everything because I thought I needed a diverse catalog. Mm-hmm. And there was a moment where I said, I don't need this. I was like, I'm burning myself out, and I'm not happy making music anymore, or not, a lot of the stuff I was working on, I wasn't happy doing. And I just started saying no to basically everyone. Mm-hmm. And now I'm doing less and I'm making more and I'm getting more placements. One song will get way more placements than just one placement per song that I was getting before, whatever.
1,000%.
So it just, those are the kind of two moments. Yeah.
So what is your, real quick, and then I want to listen to the track that you landed. But what does your day-to-day look like right now? Just from a music perspective, from a business perspective, how are you going about everything right now?
I mean, my day-to-day now is basically deciding on whether or not I would want to work or play with my baby.
Hell yeah, dude. Dude, that's the goal. It's just lifestyle design. What the hell do you want out of life?
Right.
And just build a business where you can pursue your passion. You can have a great personal life. And, I don't want to be the bearer of good news here, but it's all available in music. And like, exactly. I think for the longest time, people have said, it's a risky career. And I honestly don't think it really is anymore. Like, I mean,
I busted my ass the last however many years so that I can have the opportunity to just say no when I didn't want to work.
Yep, same. Isn't it such like a fun like power move where you're like,
right?
Yeah, I don't think
I'm going to work today,
dude. My go-to, like if there's a certain company or client that like approaches and I just like don't think it's a right fit, or like somebody there is just like rubbing me the wrong way. My go-to line, take this line down, bro. I think this is a great opportunity for someone else. Oh, I love that one.
I love that. For sure.
I got that from my buddy Garrison, who's like one of my business idols, just absolute mad genius. And he's like a year older than me. And just the coolest dude in the world. But he would say that like about like a business deal. He's like, yeah, wow, it's very, very, I'm so honored. This is a great opportunity for someone else. And I'm like,
yeah. I say that in a much more wordy way. I definitely need to just be like, yeah, I think.
Yeah, really honored. I think this is a fantastic opportunity for somebody else. Anyways, so let's listen to the track that you just landed. And then I have a pretty hard cutoff pretty soon. So we'll probably wrap it up pretty quick after that, if that's cool. Sick. All right. So this track is I Feel Numb. Not I Feel Dumb. I Feel Numb. By Dennis Corolina Angelino.
Something or other.
Sick.
It'll be different next time you talk to me.
Cool. Here we go. Dennis Corolina Angelino in the house. I was very impressed with that fat ass bass line, that fat ass kick and snare, that, lovely D50 on the. Just love that. You did a phenomenal job there, buddy.
Thanks, sir.
Just a lot of pocket. There wasn't really anything taking away from any potential dialogue. It was just a groove. So much pocket.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big thing I had to learn, especially for sync, because I used to overproduce the shit out of everything.
Just remove as much shit as possible where it still sounds like a song, and that's going to land. Yep. Love it, dude. Cool. Honestly, I don't really want to give much of a critique because it was just pocket. It was just fucking great, man.
Thanks.
There was just enough there where I was bopping. I did some Macarena. Anyways, so 2 questions I asked before the end of any That Pitch interview on the That Pitch podcast. And then we'll just wrap it up. First thing, what would you tell anybody pursuing a career in the music industry and sync anything? And then number 2, where can people find you online?
What to tell someone? Make people's lives easier. I think that's the biggest thing that I've done that has overcome any sort of talent that I do or do not have. Just make people's lives easier. People will want to work with you because you're easy to work with. That's like a big deal, especially in sync where turnaround is a lot quicker than most things, As far as where to reach me, it's Soulplus Mind. It's on everything. So SOULPLUSMIND. Yes. Did I spell that right?
You did.
I think so.
Round of applause. I got samples in this bitch. Anyways, nice. Dude, thank you so much for joining us. Dennis Corolina, Angelino, Coronel. I appreciate you, bro. Jeff Staple in the house. Shout out, Hypebeast.